Chainsaw Man has never been shy about asking the ugliest questions with the bloodiest of fists. Chainsaw Man Chapter 216, it is a masterclass of that philosophy. If you came here expecting some simple devil fights and some edgelord gore, Fujimoto said sure, but let me make sure you wrestle with the morality of 32 million potential deaths while a girl steps on a chicken corpse while she's chasing after her dead mom. It is brutal, it is poetic, and it's the kind of storytelling that reminds readers why Chainsaw Man isn't just a manga about devils and chainsaws. It's about guilt, it's about survival, and it's about cruelty baked into the human decision-making experience. Also, before we get into the review, I want to address something very quickly. Some of you guys have noticed that I stopped doing full-blown recaps for every chapter. Being blunt without saying names, a lot of channels, they recap the chapter and they aren't actually reviewing. They recap whatever chapter for a series that they're covering, and it simply summarizes the events, telling you what happened step by step, and then they say review, which that is false. A review goes deeper. It analyzes the themes, the character choices, the symbolism, and how the chapter fits into the larger story. Reviews are not meant to replace reading the chapter. They're meant to enhance the understanding that you have after having read the chapter and spark a discussion. In the past, we went more recap heavy because I was working with a budget on those reviews until I took over the reviews myself in terms of the editing. So I'm going to split the baby and I'm going to do a quick recap moving forward, and then everything else is going to be me exploring the themes and the symbolism and etc., because that is what you should be here for. You should not be here for a substitute for reading the chapter itself. So let's just get right into the quick recap before we get into the meat and potatoes. So the chapter opens with a young Denji asking Mitaka what it is that she's chasing, only for her to ignore him and sprint off. And she ends up crushing the ghost of Bucky, the chicken devil that we had in the beginning of the series. It's an echo to some of her earliest trauma. Meanwhile, you have Yoru in battle with Denji in the fight, and she reveals her newest trump card after Denji is able to cut her into pieces, or rather Pochita is able to cut her into pieces. It's a chilling callback to Makima's global contracts, like the one that she had with the Prime Minister of Japan. Yoru is boasting about how she forged her own contract with the governor of California. The deal, it is simply devilish, and it is very simple. She spares California in her coming war. In exchange, it's 32 million citizens. They're going to absorb all the damage that she takes. Again, very similar to what Makima did. Wasting no time after saying this, she summons the accident devil, which that's very cool that we have an accident devil. People are scared of accidents, and one of the whips that she ends up making comes from the tires of a car. Very brilliant. Very, very brilliant. Love that. And she crafts that vicious whip that I just described. And so she begins gleefully lashing Pochita through buildings, dishing out a lot of damage and showing that she has indeed gotten stronger to where she can even keep up with and pressure Pochita. But Chainsaw Man proves why he terrifies even primal fears. He slices her in half without any hesitation, despite knowing doing so is going to kill another innocent person. This, of course, leads to Yoru cheating death yet again by funneling more lives into her regeneration, and she retaliates before beheading Chainsaw Man. The chapter closes not on her, but on Mitaka, revealing that the figure she's been chasing after in her dreamlike alley sequence where Denji's chasing after her is the woman who once sacrificed herself, her mother. Mitaka has finally caught up with her mother. So let's just get into the meat and potatoes now. So the big theme of this chapter, or one of the big themes of the chapter, is morality and evil, and the 32 million question. The heart of this chapter's horror, it isn't about the gore, but instead it's about the math problem that Yoru forces readers to confront. Is it worth sacrificing 32 million people to take down one devil who could end the entire world? This is an age-old narrative question, one that runs through many war stories, superhero comics. Doctor Strange had to deal with it in Avengers Infinity War, and a lot of apocalyptic myths. How many lives are considered to be acceptable collateral damage to defeat a true evil? From a moral perspective, you would say that no innocent lives have to die, but what Fujimoto is showing us here is that there does come a time where you might have to sacrifice somebody in order to achieve an end goal. There are times where, as humans, we have to make a consequentialist decision. Yoru doesn't ask for permission. She doesn't rationalize. She treats those millions of people as disposable batteries that are fueling her fight. What makes this worse is the casualness of it. Her taunt about California's population lands with the same level of glee as if she's boasting about a weapons ammunition count. It positions her as a morally indistinguishable character from the very monsters that we've seen Denji fight before. It echoes Chainsaw Man's running theme. Devils and humans, they blur when it comes to cruelty and survival. For as messed up as what Yoru did, you also have to think about the fact that yet again in this series, the Japanese Prime Minister was able to make a decision to do a contract with Makima. We had another situation where an elected official did one with the aging devil. And now over in the United States, we see that there's a contract with the California governor in order to prevent more people from dying in their state. This is also where Fujimoto is showing Yoru is keeping pace with an entirely stronger version of Chainsaw Man than the version of Pochita who fought Makima in part 1. That earlier Chainsaw Man gave the control devil Makima one of her true struggles, but here we see Yoru, a incomplete war devil who is growing stronger by the minute. She's trading blows with him by offloading her damage onto the innocents. It's less of a triumph of her strength and more of a horrifying reminder of how cruelty can make someone powerful. And it fits her being the war devil because in war, people will cross lines in order to secure victory. Now, the other theme that we have here is running through guilt. This is basically Denji and Mitaka. So the parallel between Denji and Mitaka has been one of the richest threads of Chainsaw Man Part 2. And Chapter 216 pushes it further. Both of them are framed running through the alley, Denji behind her. They're chasing phantoms of their past. And both of them are bound by guilt when it comes to the death of loved ones. For Denji, his infamous alleyway moment was when he opened up the door where he faced the truth of the memory of his father's death, that he killed his father, and Makima exploited that. For Mitaka, her alley run shows her first crushing Bucky, the first creature that we see in part 2 of the story that made her feel guilty before she came face to face with her own mother. The woman who, if I'm not mistaken, gave her life in order to protect Mitaka, but now we're going to find out exactly what happened most likely. The imagery with this, it cements both Denji and Mitaka as an inverse. Denji killed his family in that desperate moment. He killed his father. Mitaka lost her family. Both of them are characters anchored by guilt to a degree, but from opposite directions. Denji's guilt is from having taken a life, and Mitaka's guilt until something changes comes from somebody dying in front of her. It's a powerful contrast that makes their eventual connection feel inevitable, almost fated before Fujimoto inevitably kills Mitaka off. They're written as being two halves of a single narrative exploration of trauma and survival. Then when you get into Makima and with Yoru and the parallel with them, this just further builds on the concept of the cruelty of authority. It's one of the most striking callbacks in this chapter where Yoru makes that deal with the California governor. It's not impossible to compare it to Makima's deal with the Japanese government in part 1. Both devils weaponize political structures to shield themselves. Both frame their bargains as necessary sacrifices. Both lay bare how authority figures can be complicit in cruelty when survival is at stake. The mirroring shows that Yoru is not merely a chaotic war machine. She is, like her sister, someone who will manipulate systems of power to ensure her dominance. It is fitting. Control and war, they go hand in hand. And now we see control and war are implementing very similar tactics. By binding herself to elected officials, she underscores the series' entire thesis that devils aren't alien to human nature. Instead, they are extensions of it. Yoru's cruelty isn't just devilish, bureaucratic. It is systematic, and it is disturbingly human for someone that is supposed to despise humans as a devil. Chainsman chapter 216 isn't just a fight chapter. It is a layered interrogation of morality, guilt, and power. Yoru proves herself a villain cut from the same cloth as Makima, calculating, manipulative, and willing to gamble with millions of lives for her end goal. She is a consequentialist. Denji and Mitaka, they continue their mirrored journeys, both defined by guilt and grief, but it's inverted. And the fight itself between Yoru and Pochita, it's even more terrifying than the one that shredded Makima's plans because of what we have at stake now with another innocent party and Mitaka. Fujimoto really thrives on forcing readers to look at the uncomfortable truths. That's part of why I love Chainsman as a series, and chapter 216, it is no exception. It reminds us that the evil that is in front of you isn't always a devil. It's the choices that human beings will make, the lives they will sacrifice for themselves, and the guilt that they bury and they do not share. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing, clicking here on the left to check out more Chainsman videos, or click here on the right to check out videos from the other playlists here on the Anime Explained channel.